college in London most of the time, for 3 years of the war, and for a number of years afterwards. As to what I did there, well, I was at school at the start of the war, and I went to college to take a degree in 1941 to 44. So it was the war for all the time I was at college. But although we were at London College, our premises were situated quite away from the centre.
Ian?
And
Ian?
so
Could you move the light around
we
this
were
way?
one of the only
Move the light
two
around
colleges
the light around this way.
that did stay
No.
in London.
This way?
The other one was Imperial College. We stayed in London because we knew very well what would happen if the army took over our college, which they did with any extensive premises that weren't being used in the war. And they did not leave them all in the best of condition, let's say, when they finished. As we knew very well this would happen, so that's why we made an effort to stay in London. And we were lucky. We were about getting on for, I can't quite remember how many, several miles anyway, from the centre. And I don't think we had any damage at all from bombing, which was very lucky. Of course, there was a lot of it, of course, as well. The main thing was food. That was certainly affected quite a lot. Some things you just couldn't get at all. For instance, bananas. Children grew up during the war not knowing what a banana was. A very peculiar thing it seemed. And, I think most food was rationed. There were just a few things that weren't. Coffee wasn't, for instance. But then that wasn't nearly as used by as many people at that time. So it was tea that we missed. Well, we had tea, but we got about a quarter or half pound of tea, which had to last for a month, if you can imagine doing that. So we naturally made fairly weak tea so as to make it go further. I don't know. I think what most people missed most was meat. But I wasn't all that fond of meat anyway. I really preferred fish, as long as it was fried. So that didn't affect me. that much, but some people missed it very much. But at that time you could get plenty of fish, have as much as you could find in the shops. But of course, all the best sort used to disappear pretty well as soon as they got in there, because people were waiting for them. And you used to see quite long queues waiting by the shops before opening time in the morning, so as to be the ones who got first to any new goods that might have come in. And the people at the back of the queue maybe were unlucky. Anyway, compared with a lot of places in Europe, we were pretty well off, and we weren't occupied, thank goodness. That was a great blessing, all due to the Channel. So we should always be grateful for the English Channel in England. Oh dear, I don't know what else you want to know about. Oh, you couldn't do any private car driving because gasoline was very restricted. Private motorists who couldn't conjure up any reason for it got none at all during the war, and we didn't. But our car was just tucked away in the garage and stayed there for the whole war and for quite a number of years afterwards. The really annoying thing about the war was that we had rationing, but it went on for 5 or 6 years, I think it was, after the war, which seemed rather unnecessary. And the really galling thing was that Germany, who was supposed to have lost, had rationing as well as we did, of course, after the war, but they finished with it before we did. So we were still grinding on with everything more or less rationed, and quite unnecessarily. We had a left-wing government then, and they just loved regulating people's lives. So, if you could ask me some specific things, I could probably tell you. Oh, fun. Yes, I forgot to say, yes. I was at college for 3 years during the war, and in 1944, when I graduated, I went to work at the Royal Aircraft Establishment, which I don't think exists now, but this was a research establishment which concentrated on aero problems. from the construction of planes to a research division which tried to look into the future and see what would be needed then. And that was where I was working. And so it was rather abstract work, research on fluid flow for considering the design of aircraft. And this involved dealing with matters concerning weather and trying to see what effect the warming of the climate would have in this respect. So it was very abstract and far away from the actual world. I'm just trying to think of anything else I could remember about this. It was mostly mathematical, theoretical, but also some practical work. For instance, I can remember now the very first job I was put on when I went to Farnborough was doing something, I can't quite remember that, was on an aircraft wing. And I had a whole real aircraft wing there to experiment on. So it was interesting. I enjoyed being there, and there were several friends from college who I knew, of course, who were working there. So, in one way, I was sorry to see the end of the war, but of course not for other reasons. So, that's about all I can tell you, unless you have specific questions.